A few hours down the road, there is a bump and they stop the carriage. Behind them, they find a cloaked figure that had been run over by the back wheels, but not the front wheels. Bjorn quickly heals the man and the pilgrims interrogate him. He is an assassin hired to kill them, but he only took the job because the Orcish pirates had stolen his dog and threatened to eat it if he didn't cooperate. He has killed 48 people before, but was not expecting to have to hold on to the underside of a carriage for a week to avoid getting caught by a wizard that was vomiting acid and pooping lightning. Bjorn writes a note to send back with the man.
Dear pirates, you know who I am and what I can do. The bearer of this note is owed his dog. If he doesn't get it in good condition, I shall come there and rip out your throats. Signed, the Paladin and Avenger, Bjorn.
Bjorn and Perrin convince the man to give up his career and become a potter. Then he walks back south to town. Further north, the pilgrims find a group of elves and try to offer their assistance, going so far as to trot the dire goat slowly beside walking military elves and carry on conversation. The High Elf commander keeps repeating that the Aladian family is not welcome here, but no one seems to know what that means. Eventually the group give up and head on to the next town. Fulidu is a small town, and the last on the road before the path turns into a small river. It is too rocky and narrow for the carriage, so they store Bob, Rando, and the carriage in town. The red infection in the forest is clearly visible, but the immediate area has been burned away. The group elect Bjorn as the one to communicate with the military personnel, and he gets the commander to update their map with the known area of infection and current burned areas. The infection seems to be coming from a larger river to the east, and has already taken over one of the sacred temples in the forest. The military is working tirelessly to ensure the remaining temples are kept safe. The military commander, Lieutenant, explains that Perrin's father has refused to send aid, due to a 300-year-old grudge between them that started when Perrin's father fucked Lou's wife. His wife died only 15 years ago, fighting an infected Ent. Perrin uses the group's remaining messenger Raven to send word to his mother, asking for assistance. Once they have the blessing of the lieutenant, they begin their walk north on the side of the small river. They make it through the burnt area and into the lush green forest. The deeper they go, the taller and wider the trees get. At one point, they find deer tracks the size of Elsa, but they keep moving. A dryad giggles at them from the shadows, and Thoraxia is the only one to catch a good look at it. But she tells Jack, and he informs the other pilgrims. The forest is clearly magical, but it is an ancient natural magic, as opposed to the red infection, which is unholy, evil, relatively new, and dangerous magic. Further in, the group gets scared when the ground begins to shake. Giant footsteps rumbling the ground and making leaves fall from trees precedes the arrival of an Ent. Kator shouts to it in Elven, and they talk for a while. The Ent puts down his hand for Kator to use as an elevator, and they speak face to face 100 feet up. The Ent warns about dark creatures, monsters that clambered up from the dark and began attacking and spreading the red infection. Kator relays the information to the other pilgrims while Perrin takes a turn speaking to the Ent. He notices a chunk missing from one of the Ent's arms, and he tells a story about how he had been infected with the red. But some elves saved him, cutting out the infection and cauterizing the wound with fire. At night, the pilgrims camp in between 3 trees whose branches form a sitting area. Perrin and the ladies stay inside the magical Leomund's tiny hut on the ground. Jack uses a tent nearby. Kator and Nyx sleep in the canopy, and Bjorn lays out his bedroll on the ground. In the morning, Nyx and Kator forage for some food, finding a rabbit, a boar, a few miscellaneous nuts and fruits, and some blueberries the size of tomatoes. They make most of it into a stew for breakfast, but Kator keeps a few blueberries separately, and some are eaten raw by the adventurers. By noon, they have found their way to a clearing in the dense forest, and they see some green-skinned butterfly-winged pixies fluttering about. One ties Jack's shoes together, and he falls on his face. They laugh, and Bjorn begins to pray. Kator silently kneels and places a hand in the soil, closing his eyes. When they finish, there are a group of pixies with a miniature feast table set up in the grass, and they are offering food to the pilgrims. They feast together, despite not being able to communicate, and then they continue on. Before long, a red infected boar charges at them from ahead. Perrin's lightning bolt injures it, and Bjorn chops off its head. As the body begins to dissolve like acid, Jack uses Witch Bolt to burn it to dust, hoping to prevent infection. The group check the surroundings for signs of damage, and they find a narrow red cut on a tree. Bjorn uses his radiant flaming axe to cut out the infected material, and Jack burns it once it hits the ground. Then the tree moves, and the Ent whose leg was the tree thanks them for saving him. He says he was not fast enough to move out of the way of the boar, and says that he could feel the infection trying to take over his mind, even from that brief time. This Ent confirms that the largest river in the land is where the infection is coming from. It is the Underdark. The river goes so deep that it has gone into the Underdark, and the creatures there are using it to climb up. They are also climbing up in other places, and are using the infection as cover to move massive amounts of forces through major entrances. He pokes holes in Cater's map to indicate the major openings. Perrin says if they tell the elves about this, there will be a full-scale war between the elves and the drow. The others are not sure if such a war would be a good idea or a bad idea. If it were just soldiers and mages going into the Underdark to eliminate hostiles and free slaves, it could be good, but if the elves are fervent in their hatred, they might end up attacking enemy civilians and causing unnecessary suffering. The Ent says that his kind has tried to attack the Underdark, but they were too big to fit through the holes to go down. He warns them that they might be getting into something they aren't strong enough to fight.
You are such small sprouts. Do you not get enough water?
He asks.
This is as big as we grow,
Says Elsa.
Sometimes it takes the smallest sprout to crack the largest boulder,
Says Cator. Before leaving, the Ent acknowledges their strength and gives Bjorn a cloak of protection, as thanks for saving his life. As the pilgrims continue along the side of the river, Elsa complains that she can't see the canopy anymore, and she wants a roof over her head.
A stone roof, and stone floors too.
Bjorn offers to make her a wooden hat painted like stone, but she rejects the idea. They stop for a short rest, and Nyx goes fishing. Cator finds a poisonous snake that is infected with the red disease. He sneaks away and alerts the group, waking up the snake. Then Perrin blasts it with lightning, and it explodes, showering several of them with guts and infected red material. As Cator examines the remains, he shows everyone that the infection forms a lattice structure within the flesh, webbing together the skin, muscle, bones, and spreading to the brain. Jack hands out soap and everyone cleans up, making sure to burn all the infected flesh before they go to sleep. During Perrin's watch, strange balls of light appear out of the forest and approach. At first, he thinks they are fireflies, but when one passes through his body, he realizes they are wisps, evil, tormented souls that stay on the material plane after death. He wakes the others, and battle is joined. Some of the pilgrims lose their wits and follow the lights into the forest, while others destroy as many wisps as possible. Bjorn, in particular, cuts a violent path through them, headed where they are leading the others, but leaving no creature alive or undead in his wake. When Jack falls for the wisp charm, Thoraxia sends a vision to him, a fly with his head, slowly floating toward a web, sticking to it and struggling against it as it wraps around him. Jack snaps out of the charm and blasts magic missiles at the enemies again and again. Dozens of the creatures explode in bright flashes of light. One gets frozen and leaves behind a solid ball that drops to the ground, but does not bounce. Nyx casts Tidal Wave to destroy more of the wisps and push the water back into the river. Perrin attempts to read the minds of a few wisps, shouting his questions for the party to hear, but keeping the answers to himself, for fear of losing concentration on the spell.
Why do you want us to follow?
To see her.
Thinks the wisp.
Who is she?
Mother, mother, mother.
The wisps mentally chant. When the spell breaks, the wisps are alerted to the intrusion and flash bright red and smoky grey, a pattern which is mimicked by all the other wisps as well. Elsa, dazed and under their charm, arrives at a waypoint with a giant wisp, but it unfurls into a beautiful ghostly woman. Without speaking, the wisp mother instructs Elsa to walk to the cliff and jump off, pointing the way. Elsa walks calmly, unaware of the danger. Jack casts Longstrider an expeditious retreat on Thoraxia, and she runs toward the wisp mother, nearly flying past the others due to her incredible speed. Bjorn, Thoraxia, and several of the others see the Wisp Mother point and rush in to help Elsa. Bjorn uses gestures to speak with the Wisp Mother, asking if the place she sent Elsa to is safe. When the mother answers in the negative, Bjorn makes a few more gestures and speaks.
If my friend gets hurt or dies,
He slides a finger across his neck.
I will
He points to himself.
kill
He makes a strangling motion.
you.
He points to the Wisp Mother. The Wisp Mother repeats the strangling motion and appears not to understand. Bjorn repeats the gesture and ends it with a ripping motion. The Wisp Mother responds with a mental message.
You better go get her.
Kaitor sees Bjorn take off running as fast as he can and decides to make sure the Wisp Mother is kept under control. He quickly kills one last Wisp, then charges the mother, stopping several feet from her and pointing his crossbow at her. When the Wisp died, the mother flinched, but otherwise did nothing. Pointing his crossbow at her from a safe distance, Kaitor shouts,
Don't move! Do you surrender?
The Wisp Mother raises a finger. Kaitor backs up a few steps, thrusts his crossbow in the air toward her, and repeats louder.
Do you surrender?
As he finishes, he is hit by lightning from the side, another Wisp that had survived. Then he is hit by a blast of frost from the Wisp Mother, who then flinches as Bjorn's protection damages her. Before Kaitor can fire his weapon, Perrin runs up and pushes it down. Perrin says that the Wisp Mother is just trying to protect her children, but Kaitor insists that
Her children are evil, and if she defends them, then she is not innocent.
Perrin argues that he grew up with magical creatures, and that when they are in their home territory, they should be left alone. Only when they venture toward civilization must they be put down,
If she attacks, I'll give the signal and you can shoot her.
says Perrin. Kaitor narrows his eyes and grits his teeth in response. Meanwhile, Nick speaks to the Wisp Mother in Sylvan, a language somewhat similar to Elvish, and Elsa is able to snap out of her daze less than a step away from the ledge of a cliff. She looks down and can see what looks like bones. She looks around and sees Bjorn has almost caught up to her, then laughs and jumps down, using her monk reflexes to slow her fall by jumping from outcropping to outcropping along the cliff wall. Elsa lands in a sea of bones and partially decomposed bodies. There are orcs, elves, humans, gnomes, dwarves, deer, rabbits, bears, boars, and many other indistinguishable skeletons and corpses. Nyx sees Elsa jump but is too far away to hear the quiet laugh, and he begins to cry, fearing that Elsa could be dead. Bjorn shouts,
Not funny, Elsa. I see you down there.
then he turns to Nyx and shouts.
Elsa's fine. She found a pile of corpses and is looting them.
Nyx calms down and translates some of what the Wisp Mother is saying. The Wisp Mother leads various creatures to the cliff to die. The evil ones become wisps after death, and the wisps feed on the life force of the good creatures that die at the base of the cliff. As the pilgrims hear the translation, Kaitor mutters, ending in a shout.
Give me the signal, Perrin. She's killing innocent people. Give me the signal. Give me the signal. Let me kill this vile creature.
Perrin remains quiet.
Not yet, she's just defending her territory.
Kaitor, outraged, screams at Perrin.
Do you think we should just let the dragon ravage the countryside because it claims that land as its territory? What about all the innocent people this Wisp Mother has killed?
He raises his crossbow and points it at Perrin.
If you stand in the way of defending the innocent, then I will cut you down as well.
Before he can pull the trigger, several things happen all at once, in the blink of an eye. Bjorn casts a calming spell, which relaxes the emotional state of most of the party. A patch of moonlight touches Perrin's foot, and he uses it to teleport back to their campsite. Nyx, with tears running down his face, casts Moonbeam and engulfs the Wisp Mother in radiant light, burning it alive, leaving nothing but glittering ash. Nyx drops to his knees and sobs quietly as Bjorn solemnly walks up and begins preparations for a funeral rite. Kaitor lowers his weapon and, after asking Bjorn's permission, fills 2 empty flasks with some of the glittering ash. Elsa climbs back up the cliff with some items she pilfered from the dead and hands a scroll to Jack. Thoraxia skitters and jumps around, eventually returning to the campsite. Jack, somewhat disoriented by the partially shared vision, walks back to camp and tries to sleep. When everyone returns to the campsite for rest, They find Perrin has isolated himself inside Leomund's tiny hut, and only Elsa and Robin are allowed to enter, and only Robin enters. Keitor volunteers to take the next watch, and Bjorn offers to take the last. During Keitor's watch, a man with goat legs, wearing a fancy vest and a loincloth, with a dagger at his side and Elsa's beer stein in his hand, lays down next to Bjorn.
Well, hello, handsome.
Says the satyr.
No, I'm not the one you're looking for. Take your horns somewhere else.
Replies Bjorn. The satyr then walks over to Keitor and sits down. The ranger doesn't shoo him away, so he tells a story about a snake and a lever, which ends with,
Careening down the side of a sand dune, he steers away from the lever that would destroy the world, but runs over Nate the snake, killing him instantly. The passenger says, better Nate than lever.
The satyr bursts out laughing as he finishes the punchline. Keitor chuckles a bit, trying to assess if the satyr is dangerous or not. Just as Keitor is double-checking to make sure he hasn't been robbed, Elsa wakes up and shouts.
Where's my beer?
The satyr chuckles and says,
Sorry, my dear, I just couldn't resist.
to which Elsa responds,
You know damn well I keep that beer stein in my bra, in between my tits whenever I'm not drinking from it. What were you doing grabbing in there while I was sleeping?
Ah, my dear, I couldn't resist you, not the beer. I was hoping you would wake up to a soft caress or a pinch, but you kept sleeping. So I had to reach in further until I found this and thought I'd have a drink waiting for the gorgeous woman to awaken.
Well, if you put it that way, I have half a mind to share it with you.
says Elsa.
Then I shall share a song with you, my dear.
Says the satyr as he brings out a pan flute and begins to play and dance. Elsa joins in, and soon they are joined by other satyrs coming out of the woods. The first satyr pulls out a large bottle of purple wine from his fancy vest and offers a drink, which Elsa gladly accepts. Keitor keeps an eye on them, and once Elsa drinks, he casts Detect Poison and Disease to ensure she is not in any danger. The only poison present in the area is alcohol, so he allows them to continue in their revelry, wishing to join them. As more satyrs join the dance and drinking party, a few female ones strut past Keitor, clearly catching his eye. Through the dancing, many of the loincloths are lifted by hands, and many more are lifted by erections. Halfway through Keitor's watch, Elsa and several of the satyrs of both sexes rush off to the bushes for an orgy that they loudly announce and give open invitation to. Near the end of Keitor's watch, two young busty satyr women walk up to him and he asks them,
Would you lovely ladies like to try out one of the empty bushes nearby? I just have to wake Bjorn so he can take over watch duty.
They giggle and say,
We were beginning to think you'd never ask.
Keitor rushes over to Bjorn's bedroll to find him already awake and filling a bucket of water in the river. The paladin walks over to Elsa's orgy and splashes cold water over most of them. The writhing pile of hairy nudity is too large for a single bucket of water, but Elsa gets up and walks out of the bushes, her breasts and thighs making sticky slapping sounds as she walks into the open to say,
Hey, we were having fun there.
Bjorn looks down briefly and then quickly looks to the side.
Yes, I can see that. It looks almost like you've been swimming in yogurt. Please rinse off and put some clothes on.
Elsa's arms flail to hide her nipples, but end up just slapping her breasts upward and sideways instead, and then she spins around and goes to collect her things from the bushes before heading to the river. Near the end of Bjorn's watch, Keitor stumbles out of the other cluster of bushes, holding his clothes in a pile and supporting his balls with the other. He rinses off in the water, wincing slightly. Then he gets dressed and heads back to camp with a slower walk and a wider step than normal. Not quite limping or waddling, but close. Jack shudders awake, having seen the dancing from the low angle of Thoraxia's eyes, but thankfully avoided the views in the bushes.